What's up, comic book fans? I'm Anchor Pete, and I'm here with my good friend Brian. And we both just put our children down to bed, our young children, right? And because we got to talk about some mature shit tonight. We got to talk about, Brian, are you ready for this?
Yep.
We're going to talk about some people turning into were-butts. We're going to talk about living pieces of poop. And, like, literally, that is what we're going to talk about tonight at one point.
Butts and poop, yeah. And we're going to throw a bunch of F-bombs in there for good measure because that seems to be, the most spoken word on Doom Patrol.
Yes. And so tonight, as Brian just said, we are talking about Doom Patrol Season 3, Episodes 3 and 4. And then we're going to also talk about The Boys Diabolical, which is a series of 8 short animated films, all made by different creators, with a big, huge voice cast. And if we still got time, we're going to stick in a little bit of Obi-Wan in there. A little Obi-Wan popped up tonight. So
just dropped tonight, yeah.
So, Brian, are you ready to talk about Doom Patrol then?
Yeah, but I think you're going to be a little bit more prepared for this than I am.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I've sent Brian detailed notes that are 3 pages long for everything we're going to discuss.
Novel.
Yeah, I get a little hyper focused. I'm just really excited about Doom Patrol because Vertigo Comics was a big part of my comic book history. Were you a big fan of Vertigo books, Brian?
I read I started reading Vertigo books right after I met you, probably because you told me to read them. I didn't really read them before, in the 90s or anything like that. It was definitely more the 2000s. I read a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, and some of the books that we maybe don't even remember are Vertigo, like Why the Last Man. That's originally Vertigo.
Right. Yeah,
I think
that was
over time,
my first full Vertigo series.
Yeah, and I think over time, we start to think that everything's just Image, right? Because Vertigo eventually ended, and Image has so many big hits, and a lot of the creators from Vertigo have gone over to Image. But the reason why I'm saying Vertigo 800 fucking times is because the Doom Patrol comic started out as a DC book, and then it became a Vertigo book, and it was kind of when Vertigo started. And I feel like the show really tries to utilize all the Vertigo stuff that you wouldn't get into the other DC movies or other live action shows. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, there's definitely a supernatural occult side that DC accesses sometimes, but I think even these characters are a little further away from what they normally will try there.
Yes. And so in the 90s, that was when Vertigo was just starting out, and you had Neil Gaiman's Sandman comic, and you had Swamp Thing was connected to that, and a whole bunch of other books. And there were these characters called the Dead Boy Detectives, and they actually show up in episode 3 of Doom Patrol, which is entitled Dead Patrol. So the Doom Patrol is dead by the beginning of this first episode that we're talking about tonight. And do you remember how they were packaged, Brian?
Yeah, they were just packaged in boxes with a bunch of peanuts.
That's what you call them. I couldn't remember. I was like, what is the white shit that you pop in there? Okay, peanuts. Packing peanuts. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that could very easily be one of those things that's regional,
Right.
Maybe we call them that here on the East Coast or something like that, but maybe West Coast, they're snowflakes or some shit.
Oh, there's snappers. It's a box full of snappers.
A box full of snappers.
So they're in a box full of snappers each. All the characters are dead except for Larry Traynor, and then Dorothy makes a surprise appearance. She's back. She's with Danny, who is a bus at this point, or kind of like an ambulance, Danny is in the new comic, which I have right here. Actually, I can got a little Doom Patrol comic from the library right here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's real involved and wacky, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's Danny right there, actually.
Yep.
So anyway, Danny and Dorothy, they go, just Danny recruits the Dead Boy Detectives, and they are 2 young ghosts. They're teenager age, or maybe early 20s. And then there's this girl who's a medium, and they go to help find the Doom Patrol, who are literally in limbo, What did you think of the actual like afterlife that they were in?
It was kind of interesting. It was, they had those weird fish guys, and it was a little creepy, yeah. And then I actually really liked the little I guess personal afterlives they went into of their loved ones before they were supposed to be introduced to their own, which felt like almost like unresolved, I guess, because they found an item of theirs that had some meaning, I guess, and they were taken out and woken up, I guess, out of that. But it felt like it was an unresolved plot point, I guess, for a lot of those things, characters.
Yeah, with each of the little interactions they had, because like you said, each of the characters essentially goes into their own little afterlife, like the path towards either heaven or hell, and they meet someone that's going to be like their guide or the person that they talk to as a little stopping point. And so, Cliff runs into his dad, who's kind of an asshole. He's shooting like unicorns, in his own personal heaven. Oh, Pegasus, right. Unicorns don't fly, right. Pegasi or whatever. And then Cyborg.
Jane said that's like 1,000 times worse than shooting a unicorn.
Right. And they taste like chicken. And so then they also run into Cyborg's. Cyborg runs into his mom, who had died in an accident that led him to be Cyborg. Rita like wakes up automatically in the afterlife and like unhooks herself from the chains they're all hooked up to. And then, we are such a big fan. Both of us are fans of Jane. She and the little girl. I'm trying to remember what the little girl's name is. What's Kay?
Kay.
Yeah, Kay and Jane go meet Kay's grandmother too, and then she's actually on Cobra Kai. But you don't watch Cobra Kai, right?
Oh, I don't know.
yeah, she's the grandma on there. But anyway, didn't these little vignettes or these little sequences kind of remind you of like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
because like they go to the afterlife and then they get into their own personal little story, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I think I'm going to reconsider my statement. I think they did kind of move with the next episode. They did move the plot forward with all the characters. Cliff wants to outdo his dad. Cyborg asks his dad about what other options there were to save him from his accident, and he learns about an experimental skin graft that could have been done instead.
Right.
And he wants to know why he was turned into a weapon. And then with Jane, I guess Jane's is kind of the most, or Jane and Kay was the most resolved, because they kind of get to the origin of the 64 different personalities.
Yes.
Because they were all the dolls that the grandmother made. So
right.
Maybe they were more resolved than I initially said there.
Yeah, and I mean they definitely kind of like move their individual plots forward a little bit. And we learned that Cliff's father ended up reaching out to Cliff's daughter and like kind of becoming a good grandfather there, right? So it's real interesting stuff. And with Cyborg, we said this last episode that like Cyborg is like more interesting in this version than other versions of Cyborg. I think that like with the DC comics and with Young Justice, they are really trying to like connect Cyborg to like Apocalypse and the New Gods with like a mother box, right? But with this, they're trying to like really play up the idea of like the dad sort of being involved with like kind of shadow conspiracy secret tech organizations,
Did they ever mention the mother box in this?
No, there's no kind of New God stuff at all.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, which the New God stuff is like in all the other kind of DC adaptations, but not in this show. That's why it's like more Vertigo like. So they're all in their own little limbos basically before they move on, and the Dead Boy detectives are trying to find them, and they name drop Death. Now in the Sandman comics, which are like the quintessential Vertigo books, Death is a female character, and she's this beautiful female character. And it was just so cool for them to like say, "Oh, she is very scary," right?
I'm almost mad at myself not pick up on that.
Oh, yeah. Well, she had little minions, which that's not really like the way she is in the comic. Like Death is very kind of laid back and fun in the comic, and she kind of just comes and takes people away from their lives. In this, it was almost implied that she had sort of minions, and she even has like this one woman with like a spider face that attacks them at the very end. And like, did you watch a lot of Supernatural or no?
Yeah, I watched a good number of. I probably watched about half the show before I stopped.
Okay. So did you get to like when we saw Crowley's mother?
No.
Okay. Well, Crowley's mother is this like kind of annoying witch. Her name's Rowena, and she's in a bunch of seasons too. But the woman that plays Rowena is the minion in this episode.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because it makes sense, right? Because like Crowley is from Supernatural, and it's that guy Mark Sheppard.
Yes.
Right, and so like the actress play. Yeah. So anyway, I really love that sequence where she's like chasing after them, and they keep calling her like the spider face lady because she's got those sort of like predator mandibles, and then she like vomits on them at the very end.
They're like, oh, it's just vomit.
Right. But right before they do that, there's like that pause, and it's just that's the funniest part. They're all just like, what? It's so good. I thought as soon as I saw this that they were going to potentially try to do a spinoff with the Dead Boy Detectives and like have another show. And I did a little research, and it turns out that was the plan.
I do remember hearing about that too, and I'm guessing it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it was in like November of 2021, so yeah, probably didn't pick up. But I mean, I don't even know. Do you think the Doom Patrol show does well?
I don't know. I never hear anybody talking about it. Like every so often you see it mentioned, and you'll see like a couple like hardcore fans be like, "Oh my god, the show's so good. You should really watch it." But no one ever probably does.
Yeah.
Just the fact that there's not like really fleshed out like Wikipedia entries on there kind of tells me that there's probably not a huge following. But I'm still really happy that it's got at least 3 seasons here, and I hope we get a 4th.
Yeah.
Actually, depending on how it ends, maybe that ends and wraps up nicely. Who knows?
So you haven't seen this season then?
No, I didn't watch it. No, and I'm waiting to watch it for this. So.
Okay, cool, very cool.
I think it works better if we don't know.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw in like 2 more parts about the Dead Boy Detectives, and then we can move on to episode 4. But for the Dead Boy Detectives, they were part of the only crossover that the Vertigo books ever had in the 90s. And that was between books like Animal Man, which was written by Grant Morrison, right? Doom Patrol, Grant Morrison once again. Black Orchid, that's another Neil Gaiman book. And then Swamp Thing, which I'm assuming was like, I don't know who was writing it. It wasn't Alan Moore, but some other big person that we love was writing it, And the crossover was called The Children's Crusade. I kind of want to check it out now. And then the only other thing was that the guy that was going to write the pilot, he also wrote this show called The Flight Attendant. Have you seen any commercials for that?
Oh, I actually watched that show.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. The woman on it, she's from The Big Bang Theory. And so I think because of that, I like kind of don't like her because she was on that show.
Yeah, but she's also Harley Quinn in the Harley Quinn show, and I really like her as that. So I think that's why I ended up watching it.
Yeah, what's her name? Like Haley Cuoco or something?
Yeah, Kelly Cuoco. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm not really sure. It's an oddly spelled name.
Yeah. So the guy that was going to make the Dead Boy Detective show, he made the book that The Flight Attendant was based on, and he also was like the showrunner of that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that would have been cool, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I would have been interested in watching that show, especially because I kind of like Dorothy, and I'm assuming she's not coming back. Because they probably expected that to be a spinoff, and it's not going to go anywhere.
I'm sorry, I was looking at my notes. Did you say you do like Dorothy, or you don't like Dorothy?
I do like Dorothy, and
okay.
I felt her exit was a little abrupt, but I'm feeling like she's not going to come back.
Yeah. And then I was wondering, do you think that this is the end for Niles? Like we're not going to see him anymore after this next episode?
Whew. I don't know. We've seen him as a ghost, so it's potentially we could see him again, or maybe flashbacks of some kind.
Yeah. So by the time we get to episode 4, Undead Patrol, what the fuck is Crowley's name on the show? Big
Willoughby. Willoughby Kipling.
Okay, right. Kipling. So Kipling has Niles Calder's head, and he's like put something over his mouth so it sounds like almost like a microphone, and his eyes are all messed up, and he's got some writing on his head, and he's like using it almost like a puppet at one point, and Niles Calder can communicate through the head, And so that's pretty disturbing for like one of the main characters on the show.
Yeah, so it's interesting because at first it seems like he's doing it for nefarious purposes. When you first see him dig up the grave and pull up the head, and then you see the scene where he just uses the head to talk to Baphomet about himself.
Yeah,
seems so juvenile and weird. But I guess that's just par for the show. And then ultimately he says that he did it to protect Niles, the information that Niles has in his head, or and then I believe who says Madame Rouge says it, maybe that maybe she was trying to sell it to somebody for a prize or money or something.
So he's like trying to protect all that knowledge because he's got this crazy knowledge in his head. The weird thing about Niles Calder, I'm not sure if it's like this in the comics. I think he's kind of more of a science guy, but like he's kind of like Dr. Doom on the show where he like mixes science and magic together.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And it's interesting how I mean, he's definitely done some things in the show, but I mean, he seems like such a he usually seems rather kind and caring on the show, but everybody like hates him.
Yeah. The whole team like hates him, especially Cliff. Cliff like really hates him. Yeah. And so in this episode, oh boy, they just devour his head. The Doom Patrol gets turned into zombies. And
from the vomit.
Because of the vomit. Right. The vomit got on everybody and it turned them into zombies. And then we find out from Niles that the way to cure someone of zombieism is for them to eat brains. And that like Hollywood has sort of corrupted that idea. But what I really liked about this Doom Patrol as zombies was that like they had captions for everything they were saying.
I honestly thought this was probably the funniest episode of the show. I laughed at almost every time one of the zombies spoke, and the fact that Willoughby can understand and respond to them was just great.
Right. And it just gets more and more over the top. It's kind of like that episode with the sex ghosts where I'm like, am I losing my mind? Like, am I? Yes, Pepper, my 11-year-old daughter. That was the episode called Sex Patrol that you walked in and I was watching. Thank you. Anyway, like at one point in this fucking bonkers show, you have zombie Doom Patrol versus werebutts. I mean, like, I'm just embarrassed saying this.
Yeah, no, it's a weird sentence to say. And the werebutts were back from season 2, right?
Yeah,
and the Bureau of Normalcy.
No, they're season 1. I'm sorry.
Oh, season 1?
Yeah.
Okay, season 1. And it's a nice callback as always. And at the very end, we see one of the werebutts that has escaped and has been turned into a zombie. And where was it? It says it was heading toward Cloverton. Is that the town they live near, or okay?
That's the town by the mansion. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, just total insanity. At one point, they like rip a werebutt in half, like just totally like shred it like that.
Yeah, a few people eat some werebutts.
Right. They're just zombies eating werebutts. And like, this tastes disgusting. Yeah. So I think just the last thing I was going to say about this particular episode is that the actress that plays, we've been calling her Madame Rouge because we know the comics, but in the show, they reveal that her name is Laura DeMille, which that's Madame Rouge's real name. The actress that plays her is Michelle Gomez. And I just know her from Doctor Who because she's like a female version of the Master. And have you ever watched Doctor Who or?
Very little.
Okay. So you haven't seen her on it, right?
Probably not. I think I tried watching the season with Christopher Eccleston, and I couldn't get into it, and I didn't continue with it.
Okay. Well, what I've had in my notes, I think you might have saw this, is that like with a couple of these Doctor Who actors, I think that because the show is so zany, when people cast them in other shows, they like really have them like camp it up and just be as absurd as possible. I think that's what they're doing with her here on this show. And it just kind of gets on my nerves. I think it's like a little bit too over the top, I
didn't think it was too over the top. I think she fit in well with the group. And I actually kind of like the character so far. And I'm curious to see her more of her nefarious origins.
I think it was like when she was like, "I'm a bird," because she watches this like reel that shows her and this other woman, and then we eventually see that Rita's there as well in the reel,
Yeah.
and she just starts saying like, "I'm a bird," and she's acting kind of silly. That got on my nerves. But what I did like about her was when she finally talks to Niles, and Niles is like, "You're like one of my worst enemies I've ever had." She kind of says, "Well, I don't think I'm a bad person," and I like that idea of like a bad guy not remembering they're a bad guy.
Yeah. And do you give them a second chance or not? And is Niles going to help her remember that or not by giving her the information that she's asking about?
Yeah,
But it seems like she doesn't completely remember yet. So she has more information. She has she knows her name. She knows that Niles wanted her dead. She has the letter, and then she finally sees. Is it her that notices Rita? Or does Rita notice it?
I think it's what do you call it? Laura DeMille.
Okay. Yeah.
So okay, last question, then we can move on to the boys. Do you think? Because I don't think that the Brotherhood of Evil they said were dead. So like you might have the Brain and Monsieur Mallah. Do you think that we'll get all like three of them together by the end?
I hope so, because I feel like obviously with season 1 we had Mr. Nobody, who was just fantastic, and right. I feel like we need and last season was very focused on Dorothy and the Candlemaker. I feel like we still need an overarching villain for this season, and maybe that's her.
Yeah,
but I think right now that we're in 4 episodes in, and she's still, kind of an ally rather than an enemy. So I think it's possible that she'll recall something and maybe meet up with the rest of the Brotherhood of Evil.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I'd love that. I love all Doom Patrol characters in the comics, and I love the Brotherhood of Evil characters. And they, a lot of times, we said this last time, they get stuck into Teen Titans often, and they get put into other things too a lot. I'm a big fan of Monsieur Mallah and the Brain too. So. All right, man. So are we ready for the boys Diabolical?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is 8 different episodes. And one thing I wanted to point out too, like a little transition, is that the boys show, we've never talked about it on our channel before, but the showrunner is Eric Kripke, who is the guy that created Supernatural. And then he was the showrunner for the first 5 excellent seasons. And then the showrunner for Doom Patrol is Jeremy Carver, who is a writer on Supernatural. And so it's like, obviously these guys are kind of like tuned into what we like. And do you think there's any kind of commonality between these 2 shows, The Boys and Doom Patrol?
Hard to say. They're so different. The Boys is a superhero parody, and and Doom Patrol is like a weird occult supernaturally show. I don't really see. I mean, other than some common actors and then the creators, I don't really see much in common. I don't think.
Yeah. I think that like just in general, they both make fun of the idea of superheroes, but Doom Patrol, even though straight out of DC Comics, is actually pretty lacking on the idea of superheroes, though.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So this special, is only 8 episodes, and they're all pretty short. It came out on March 4th, and then there were different creative teams. Which one out of the 8 did you like the most?
Oh man, I knew you were asking this. I'm not sure. I'm gonna say the last 2 were really good.
Yeah.
And I like the one that was very based on the comic. I'm Your Pusher, the 3rd one.
I'm Your Pusher. Yeah.
I kind of like the one that was with the Nubia versus Nubian.
Okay.
Well, it was written by Aisha Tyler. I would say I like those the best. Guys, I like half of them.
Okay, so who's Aisha Tyler? Can you just refresh my memory?
She is Lana on Archer.
Oh, okay. I don't watch Archer.
She's a comedian. She also used to host Talk Soup for a while. From E Entertainment.
My wife just said she hosted the Soup. Yeah, so that's before Joel, whatever the fuck his name is.
Joel McHale. Was he? She might have been before Joel McHale. Yeah.
Okay.
She filled in for Joel or something like that. I don't remember.
Okay. So she wrote that Nubian versus Nubian.
Yeah, she wrote that one, and she voiced the female character. I guess the female character is Nubia.
Yeah. Because it says Aisha Tyler was Nubia, and then Don Cheadle was Nubian Prince.
Man, I got a comment too on that. Is that Don Cheadle obviously is War Machine in the MCU, and he does a pretty like Black Panther accent. I wonder how that weird that must have been for him.
Yes. Yeah, he sounded just like him. I was like, oh, they're doing like a little parody of Black Panther here. And I couldn't like place who he was right away. That was kind of the fun of watching these shorts. Was some people you recognize right away. Like you hear Awkwafina's voice, you're like, okay, that's Awkwafina.
Yeah.
But like I didn't know Seth Rogen was in one of them, which that makes a lot of sense because speaking of showrunners, like Seth Rogen and his friend Evan Goldberg are like the producers of the show too.
Yes, and one of the other producers too who wrote the last episode. I had to write his name down because I didn't know it. It's Simon Rasiopa.
Okay.
So he's the producer on this show, and he's also the showrunner for Invincible, and he wrote the last episode on the of the show here.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So that was the only name I didn't know in terms of writers for this.
Okay.
Like everyone that wrote this is someone I was familiar with prior.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because I remember when we saw the commercial for this, they were like listing like the kinds of creators, and they did name drop Invincible, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
like right now it's this kind of amazing time because you have these sort of like comedian kind of guys just like adapting these crazy graphic comics, and Garth Ennis is involved in both of them. Like you have The Boys, and that's Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, and then I think Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg also adapted Preacher for AMC too.
They did do Preacher, yeah, and I believe they're working on a Ninja Turtle reboot too.
Get the fuck out of here, for real?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I mean, honestly, they got a really good track record. I love The Boys, man.
Yeah, The Boys is a really good show, and I think I watched the show The Boys before I read much of the comic, but I did read the entire series.
Nice.
And both, I feel like most of the time, the first thing you see is what you tend to gravitate towards, and I would say that like this time it was really 50-50. Like there are certain things I like about the comic better, and there are certain things I like about the show better. But it's not like a totally like uneven field.
Well, so that kind of brings us to the Pusher. I'm Your Pusher Man or whatever, because you said that was one of your favorites. That's where we have Simon Pegg voicing Wee Huey, and then Jason Isaacs as Butcher. I love that. That was so
that
good.
was perfect. That was a great cat. It took me a few minutes to hear the voice to realize who it was, but once I did, I'm like, that is fucking perfect.
Yeah, perfect casting. That sequence, I really like it. I think it was written by Garth Ennis too, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it felt the most like the comic. It looked the most like the comic.
Even the characters didn't have the comic designs for the characters, so that was. I mean, Homelander is pretty much unchanged, but Maeve looks a little different. I don't think they even mentioned Jack from Jupiter in the show. So,
no, I don't think they do. No, in the sequence, because so that guy was called the Great Wide Open, right?
No, it was the Great
Wide Wonder.
Great Wide Wonder, yeah.
Right, because I kept thinking they were saying white. I'm like, oh, is this like kind of like a little weird?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But no, it's the Great Wide Wonder.
Yeah, because they even kind of like put a little lampshade on that. They're like, it's great, like Into the Great Wide Open or whatever. And so I just felt like that kind of encapsulated what this whole show was about. Because that's the interesting thing about all these shorts, right? Is that there's such a big focus on drugs in all of them. And that's really what The Boys is about, right? It's essentially like through chemistry, they're able to make superheroes. And everyone is essentially like this reckless kind of drug addict. It's like a metaphor for steroids, but it's like with superheroes,
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. And I think one of the big differences between the show and the comics is that in the show, you have to be, or most are injected at a young age with Compound V. But in the comic, anybody can take it at any time, and even the characters in in the main the protagonists have all taken
Right.
Compound V, so they all have like super strength and some sense of some kind of durability.
Right. Yeah, and I'm wondering if, like, by the time we see season 3 of The Boys, maybe one of them might end up injecting themselves with Compound V. We'll see what happens.
That's kind of one of the things I like about the show is that only the female has powers.
Yeah,
and it works with the story. And I think it'll be better if they don't get it because
okay.
it's a little weird sometimes. They just get into these like fist fights and in the comic, and it's just like it's resolved like that. I like it when they have to think about to think outside the box, like how they had to kill Translucent in the first season. You know, all that, like that was interesting and funny, and then that wouldn't have happened in the comic because they just would have punched him or something. You know.
Right,
yeah, so
right.
They get out of trouble too much by fighting, and I didn't really appreciate that about the comic as much as the show. And I mean, it was pretty awesome in the oh god, there are 2 seasons out or are there 3 seasons out?
There's 2 seasons of The Boys.
Oh yeah, okay. So whatever the beatdown on Stormfront when it was like Starlight and the female and Queen Maeve, all this beat, that was awesome, an awesome moment.
So good. It's funny because like they nominated The Boys for a TV show, I think for like best TV show for like the Golden Globes. And, you know, whenever you see these, like, you know, they do the little clip of the show, it's always this dramatic acting. They just showed that scene of them punching Stormlight. Or what the fuck's her name? Stormfront. Yeah. They just showed, like, it's just this awkward, like, battle sequence. I was like, that's the clip? Whatever. So, anyway,
yeah, maybe we should talk about the animated show that we said we were going to review instead of the actual show.
There we go. So I didn't really like Nubian versus Nubian. I was thinking that maybe you liked it more because Bender's in it.
Oh yeah, Groundhog was voiced by Bender.
Right.
And I did notice that right away. But I like that one. I felt like it was like a riff on like Storm and Black Panther.
Yeah, right.
And I liked the twist in it wasn't as dark, I guess. It was more of a joke, I guess. And I think I appreciated that because most of these just end kind of horribly.
Yes.
So
yeah, I was gonna say it fits with the tone of the show. Like when things didn't end horribly, I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of surprised, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, that was a little more of a laugh. Like, the first one was kind of like a classic Looney Tunes, no speaking and then there's just lots and lots of murder. But ultimately, you're seeing this guy and this baby just happily walking away after they just killed like 100 soldiers or something like that, you know?
Right.
The whole theme of the second episode is killing parents of these wayward heroes with weird powers.
Yes.
So yeah, and everything was either like really dark or just bad in general.
Well, the second one, I'm actually surprised that you didn't list that one as one of your favorites.
You know what? Yeah, because the second one was written by Justin Roiland and somebody else whose name I don't remember, but I didn't really recognize his work. But
Bayouth.
Yeah, it definitely felt Rick and Morty-ish, but it didn't work for some reason for me. It felt like a watered down Rick and Morty episode. I don't know, like Rick and Morty could also get kind of dark, but I guess I don't know. It was just straight revenge murder with wackiness. I actually just it was one of my least favorites, I would say.
Yeah. Well, like with that one, okay, there were like little snippets that felt like Rick and Morty in that episode, but then it just like it wasn't as clever. And I think maybe it's because you don't have Dan Harmon and you have like the Rick character that's always like kind of saying that stuff under his breath. But like all the other supporting stuff that's like around it was kind of like in this episode. And I mean, you had Christian Slater as the narrator guy. I thought that was a great touch. And but like, I remember as like a teenager watching anime and stuff for the first time and watching certain cartoons that were real like dark and disturbing and just being unsettled by them because I wasn't expecting them to be that disturbing. And like in this one episode, when they're killing all their parents, there's that part where the ghost girl takes that like slow girl's hand to stab the dad in the face with the knife. that was like too much, you know?
Yeah, it was a little too much, I
Yeah.
think. And what other did anyone any other episode go too far in that regard? I don't know.
I mean, like, there's some really disturbing stuff in the very last episode, 1+1=2, like the Homelander one.
Yeah, that felt very much like the comic and the show too. But
Right.
I did think that was a one of the more solid episodes.
I was kind of not disturbed, but I don't know, annoyed with the ending of Boyd in 3D. That's the one where like they had that gel that when they put it on them, right? Because I liked it. I liked that one for the most part. I actually kind of wanted that happy ending where they still got back together after their powers wore off.
Yeah, I was actually kind of wondering if any of that actually happened.
I don't think so. I think
or it was like a Total Recall kind of question where it was all in his head.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of goes with the dark twist on the whole story, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then like BFFs, I like Awkwafina a lot. I really liked her in Shang-Chi, and she's really great in like the second Jumanji movie. I don't know.
Right.
With all the poop and stuff, it was just, I don't know, just
it was a riff on like, you know, the magical girl trope and, you know, monster training tropes from like anime. Kind of looked like almost like a Steven Universe kind of art style.
Right.
But yeah, it didn't work. That was on my lower on my list as well, I would say.
The one that we didn't talk about then was the John and Sun Hee.
Oh, that was a great one. I really like that one a lot. That was very sad and depressing, and written by Andy Samberg, which was interesting.
Yeah,
and that felt like a boy's twist on like Akira to me.
Yeah. The style of it, because some of these were like really like artistically compelling. I think that one might have been the best example of that.
I agree.
Yeah. And the voice
that was the one where the ending or the twist of it was kind of, it was sad, but it was like hopeful in a way, because you know the woman was sacrificing herself, you know, for the greater good, to stop that the creature that came out of her from her cancer.
Yeah. And you know, each of these little shorts, they begin with that little sequence. What's the name of the dog?
Terror,
right? Terror. Okay, right. Terror Sikkim, right? And then that one, I remember they showed like Terror kind of growling at something, and they showed like a shadow that had tentacles. So I think that like when you'd see Terror in the beginning, it was kind of like foreshadowing something that was going to happen in that episode.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. I know why they did it. Eric Kripke was basically saying that they wanted something that could hold people over until season 3. And, you know, with animation, you can do stuff without having people interact in person. So that worked for COVID.
Yeah, I think so. And I would certainly be curious to see more of it, but I wouldn't be sad if this is all we got at the same time.
Right. They Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, they wanted to make it kind of like in the style of the Animatrix, which I was a fan of that when that came out too. And this was just like loaded with like, you know, people that we recognize, you know, like Kieran Culkin was in it. He was in that I'm Your Pusher short. And I'm a big Succession fan right now. So he's in that. You had Michael Cera was in that one too. Kenan Thompson from SNL was in the one where they killed the parents. And then Kevin Smith was in that one too.
Really? I didn't hear Kevin Smith.
Yeah, there's so many voices in that. And you got to admit, though, man, with that one, some of their powers were pretty fucking funny. And some of the things they did.
Yeah, no, it was. But, like, to me, it felt like a subpar Rick and Morty episode that didn't have – it was just missing something to me. I don't know.
Yeah. The one guy whose, like, balls were, like, super hot and he, like – tagged his dad to death or whatever. You know, it's just so fucked up.
Oh, man.
So, all right. Well, we've talked about a lot of juvenile wacky shit. Why don't we talk about some serious Star Wars shit? How's that sound?
All right, let's do it.
Okay. So I actually didn't take any notes for Obi-Wan, but I watched the trailer like 5 times or so.
Man, what do you think? The second it starts, man, the music, like probably like one of the best things that came out of the prequels was that song and that scene from Phantom Menace. So like hearing that, I was like, oh, okay, you got my attention.
Yep, sold. Yep. It's kind of funny because they go back and forth between two themes. They go back from the Duel of Fates. That's the theme you're talking about, which that's when they say like Lucasfilm and stuff. It's Duel of Fates. And then they also do Battle of the Heroes. That's this music that's playing when Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting in Revenge of the Sith.
I didn't even notice that. Okay.
Yeah. The very, very first music is like a slowed down version of Battle of the Heroes. And then when he's like looking at Luke and it cuts to the Lucasfilm, that's when it does the
Duel of Fates. Okay.
Duel of Fate. Right. So have you played that game that is like the Fallen Order game? Have you played that?
Yeah, I'm about I was playing it. My wife played it as well, but she finished it and I haven't yet.
Okay.
Because that always happens. If she's playing the game and I'm playing the game, like she gets mad at me if I go ahead of her. God, she's gonna be so mad that I just said that.
It's all good. All 4 people that watch this are gonna know the secret now. But so did you guys enjoy it though when you were playing?
She loved it. I really liked it too, and I think I tried going back to it one day, but I just didn't know what the hell I was doing anymore. I was in some level, and I just like I have no idea where to go at all, and I don't want to restart it, and I just haven't had the time to apply myself to figure out what the hell I have to do again.
Yeah, well,
but it was good. The story was interesting. I mean, I know that when we talked about Boba Fett, there was that brief appearance by the little droid from the game too. So it's nice to see that they have things from the games, from the old shows, kind of all tying together.
Right. And the reason why I was bringing that up for Obi-Wan Kenobi is because Obi-Wan Kenobi is like set right in that same time period. And then the Inquisitors are in that game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so this show is like very heavy on the Inquisitors, according to this trailer.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah. The grand or like the main Inquisitor, because I think the way and you can probably clarify this with the game. I remember this from the comics because they were in the Darth Vader comic a lot too. Is that it's like brother 1, sister 1. They just have names like that, where it's like
who is the one
first? No, it's like first sister, second brother.
Yeah.
That's what it's like, right? And so the main Inquisitor, I know that he was on that Rebels show.
Yes.
And then, speaking of Jason Isaacs, he was Jason Isaacs on that show.
That's right. Although I don't think he's not playing the character in this show. And the Inquisitor from the game was the second sister.
Second sister. Okay.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of muddy for me, like as far as like which ones are still alive and stuff by the point of this Obi-Wan show. Because I know some of them get killed off. Probably some of them get killed off in that game. And then, probably some of them die in Rebels too. So, but it seems like there's a lot of them. And do you think that Obi-Wan is going to go off-world on the show, like off of Tatooine?
I think they even show it.
They show it?
I'm pretty sure they show a scene where he's in a darkened area on a rooftop somewhere. I think he had a blaster in his hand, actually.
Yeah,
unless that was Uncle Owen, because they have very similar haircuts.
Yeah. And they wear similar clothes too. I'm kind of hoping that this show addresses that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it was just unknown at the time that those were going to be Jedi robes. When they first made episode 4, so it would be interesting to see if they have a response for that.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny if they had a sequence where like they're in the Tatooine like Mos Eisley market, and there's like a stand that's just like sort of like hand-me-down clothes. Like, when like one team wins the Super Bowl and the other team, they sell the merchandise.
Oh my God, yeah.
They're just selling the Jedi stuff. We have all these robes. They just all vanished out of their robes, They just sell it to people. Yeah. But no, it looks really good. I don't know the creative team behind it at all, but it kind of scratches that Star Wars itch that I think people are missing that really hasn't been scratched since like maybe The Last Jedi. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to bring up something super controversial, but I just feel like that whole Jedi light and dark kind of thing, you know, we haven't really dealt with that in a while now.
Yeah, I mean, with the exception of Luke on Boba Fett and Mandalorian, there hasn't been much Jedi stuff. I mean, I guess the Darksaber stuff, but yeah, it's a curious time period. You know, people want to know what Obi-Wan was up to in between, you know, the movies. I know you do see him in the some of the animated shows, which I have not watched, but this seems to be filling in a gap that we haven't previously seen. I mean, they must have covered some of it in the comics as well, too. So, got a lot to catch up on.
Do you think there's going to be a line where someone says to Obi-Wan that, like, oh, the desert is like aging you so much? Like, do you think they're going to reference the fact that he like looks so old by?
You know what? I think that there's a number of instances where they show a character in Star Wars and then how they age in such a short period of time. And I don't think they've addressed it otherwise, so I don't think they will. I think it's just gonna be a thing, and you just have to accept the flaws of casting a character between decades.
Okay. I kind of feel like they might, just because like they also like gave Chewbacca a medal at the end of Rise of Skywalker, right? It's like, oh, we have to address that because of the fans, you know?
Well, but I think that was more like, Chewie deserved the medal. This was more like, hey, if Obi-Wan was this young, how did he get that old? I get this is a plot hole, sort of, I guess.
Right.
You know, I feel like those things are different, fall in different categories.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Because I think like how old he should be by like A New Hope, he should only be like maybe like in his 50s or so, and I think Alec Guinness was significantly older.
Yeah, he was probably late 60s, early 70s at the time.
Yeah, and Anakin, I think, is probably like just in his 40s by the time of A New Hope.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, which it's just a weird thing to say. I mean, if they don't address why Anakin sounds like an old black man, I mean, you know, they're not going to address how Obi-Wan aged, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
It's just one of those things that you have to kind of accept and get over.
Yeah.
But you know, again, the Chewie thing was totally different. The Chewie deserved a medal.
Yeah. Have we talked about this before of like how they're going to explain Vader and Obi-Wan fighting again?
I don't think so. I don't know, but we do know that Hayden Christensen is in this show. Yeah. And I'm really curious what capacity.
Well, because they say like they've said it's like the rematch of the century, and some people have tried to justify it by saying, like Darth Vader says, "When I last left you, I was but the learner. Now I'm the master now," or something like that. He says that line to Obi-Wan in A New Hope, and it's like clearly Anakin is the one that is left at the end of Revenge of the Sith, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they actually battle again. See, because I feel like the way that Darth Vader is portrayed in all of the Star Wars canon since Disney took over is that he's like this relentless killing machine. I mean, in the comics especially, they like drill that home. And I think that if he knew that Obi-Wan was alive still, he would fucking like not stop until he was dead.
Yeah, and it seems like when they meet on the Death Star in A New Hope that he's surprised.
Right.
And I feel like, you know, he should have or would have known about these Inquisitors hunting down people. And, you know, if one of them ran into Obi-Wan in their travels, that he would have known about it. Unless, I mean, it's very possible Palpatine's like, don't tell him, you know?
Right.
I could believe that too, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, his whole thing is about manipulating him to the dark side, so.
Yeah. I don't know. Would you be excited to see the two of them fight, like with Darth Vader in the suit versus him?
From a visual perspective, yes, but I mean, story-wise, like I really hope it makes sense and it fits, and it's not just thrown in there just for the sake of doing it.
Okay.
Like I'd rather have him fight these Inquisitors and build up a new villain that we haven't really seen or seen as much than just to throw in that battle for the sake of throwing it in.
Okay. I got one weird question. I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but like the second to last shot of the trailer is like, I think Obi-Wan getting shot at, and then like there's an explosion and a bunch of birds fly, right? You remember that from the trailer?
No.
Okay. So like I've watched the trailer a whole bunch of times, and like the second to last shot is like in darkness, hope will survive, or some kind of shit. They say those words, and then like someone shooting a blaster, I believe at Obi-Wan. There's an explosion, and a bunch of green birds fly at that moment, and it cuts to black, and then you just see Obi-Wan kind of like looking down or whatever, and that's the end of the trailer, right? And I was wondering, I was like, is there significance to these birds? It's kind of weird to like show this explosion of these birds, and I'm like, okay, does this mean something? So you don't remember the birds, so it's okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the birds, so I don't know really how to comment on that, but I think one of the most interesting things about this show is that we know the outcome. We know what happens. You know, we know Obi-Wan survives. We don't know if there's anybody else helping him outside of maybe Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, but we know what happens to them too. So it's like, I'm curious as to the stakes in this and how they make it interesting, being that we know the outcome.
Right. We know the outcome. We know what happens in A New Hope, and what you were saying too is that, like, you know, Anakin, if he knew that Obi-Wan was still alive, like he would act differently, right? And I kind of said that too. In the Legends canon, there are these creatures that kind of like cancel out the power of the Force. They're called Yasomari. They're like these little creatures that Grand Admiral Thrawn uses. I'm wondering if there's going to be something like that, because like if Vader was fighting Obi-Wan and then there was an explosion, in a regular world, it'd be like, oh, I saw an explosion, he's dead. But in Star Wars, Vader would have to feel like Obi-Wan's Force presence go away, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, like, because I feel like the only way, if they were to fight each other, the only way that it would work is if Vader was convinced that Obi-Wan died in that fight.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
So there has to be some kind of thing that would mask his Force presence.
Yeah, and
you know
the other thing too, well, you know, in the sequel trilogy, Luke talks about disconnecting himself from the Force. So maybe Obi-Wan does that. Another thing that's really curious too is you don't see Obi-Wan's lightsaber at all in this trailer, and I'm curious if we will even see it at all. I mean, because there was that one shot I mentioned earlier. It looked like he had a blaster, which is kind of like weird to see, honestly. So,
right.
I'm curious if that will come into play at all. I mean, he does have it. So.
Yeah, a really good point. In the sequel trilogy, like him disconnecting himself, Luke disconnecting himself from the Force, that'd be real interesting if like Obi-Wan can do something like that in this. Because in the Rebels show, this is kind of a spoiler for Rebels, but like he fights Darth Maul again on Tatooine, right? And so obviously he has like Jedi skills when he fights Darth Maul. Like maybe he is able to disconnect himself from the Force. That would be really interesting. Because one of the things that we know from the end of Revenge of the Sith is that Qui-Gon's ghost kind of helps him learn how to become one with the Force. So like maybe something like that happens. I don't know. We'll see. Like maybe he learns to kind of disconnect himself. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, we'll find out more on May 25th.
Whoa, all right, cool. All right, well, that we covered a lot tonight, didn't we?
Yeah, it's just about 51 minutes.
Nice. And you know what? We've been growing in fans, I think, because people are digging our Raised by Wolves commentary that we have or whatever. But if you guys have not liked and subscribed, please do. Brian and I are here every Wednesday where we talk about all these different comic book adaptations. Right now, we're doing Doom Patrol. We're going to do Moon Knight when it comes out at the end of the month. And then, of course, we're going to cover this Obi-Wan show when it comes out in May. So
and don't forget then, Young Justice coming back sometime this month as well.
Oh, shit. Yeah, so there's always horror content. We live in a golden age, and we're here to talk to you guys about it. All right, see y'all next time.